Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and lock your headphones and let the magic begin. Apostasy by Deydralinne, Chapter 16, A Reasonable Plan. "Morning, Baldy," Hermione chirped as she strolled into the large, empty hall in Riddle Manor. Draco had not told Voldemort about the contents of the prophecy at their dinner, telling him instead that they were still shifting through evidence, as per her request. "Boldster!" Ginny bounced in behind her. "How are you today?" The Dark Lord grimaced. "Must you two call me that?" The man sighed in disdain. There was nothing he could do about it, and he knew it. Draco and Theo, who had accompanied them this morning, flinched as well. He was delighted in seeing the way it made Ginny shine with amusement. They were putting perhaps a little too much faith in their rings and maybe getting a little too cocky, but for now, Hermione was choosing to enjoy it. "Yes, I told you, as long as you insist on that ridiculous name and wear that face, you will be called stupid things." Hermione transfigured a chair into a love seat and flopped down. "Besides, that really isn't our most pressing issue right now." They had debated a lot over how to break the news to them. The thing they all had agreed on over coffee that morning was that it should come from Hermione and Ginny, as casually as they could, preferably. The fewer of them present, the better. That way it wouldn't seem like so much of a threat. "We want to start by saying that we came to you, Tom, and are telling you because we don't want this to get twisted into something it isn't. Yesterday, we recovered some things from the order base, as you know, and we've been working through them. One of the things we came across was this prophecy. Kingsley had it locked away in a drawer, hidden under glamours." Ginny's hand appeared from her pocket, and in her fingertips was the small orb. Voldemort straightened, his eyes narrowing at the sight of it. His bony hand reached out to take it, which Ginny allowed. His expression turned to one of confusion when he heard nothing. "We will need to find the seer to try and determine who it belongs to." "No need, we already know. It's mine." Hermione tried to keep her voice as level and carefree as possible. Ego was a fragile thing, and she knew that when it came to the Dark Lord before her, that statement was especially true. His eyes shifted to her, looking at her with suspicion. She didn't wait for him to ask, figuring that her best bet was to offer the information freely. A conflict resolved quickly will change the world as we know it. The brightest star leading a nation out of the dark and into the light will be our saving grace. She, most intelligent, will guide us on a path to greatness. That is what it says. Voldemort swept away to walk the perimeter of the room, his cloak billowing out behind him. The room had become taut with tension as everyone waited to see his reaction in thick silence. Hermione watched as she took several deep breaths. "And what would you determine that to mean, Miss Granger?" She had to admire that he had not called her mudblood once since she had demanded it, even in the face of her continuing to call him Baldy despite his request not to. The hypocrisy wasn't lost on her, but she needed to see how far things would go, what the boundaries were, and what kind of relationship would be formed between the two of them. Hermione looked into his eyes. She probably should have felt nervous, but she didn't. If anything, she felt at peace, like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "I take it to mean that Kingsley made a grave mistake by pushing me to the point that he has, and he has sealed his fate. He has given you victory on a platter. I am not destined to, nor do I want to rule. You know the vision that I have for the world, for our world. And when I help to make that vision a reality, it will be you who sits at the throne of it all. I think it would be foolish of me to put complete trust in you, Miss Granger. Who's to say you won't change your mind? That you won't try and seize power in the end after all?" Hermione tutted at him, a tight smile at her lips. "Oh, Voldy, I thought we agreed never to lie to one another. I swore an unbreakable vow that I would do no such thing, did I not? Besides, my spirit is too wild to be contained by that of a political position." One could argue that the role she intended to play in the coming months for his regime would be considered a political one, but she had zero interest in remaining in that role. When all of this was said and done, she planned to take an extended vacation. Perhaps she and Ginny could sip cocktails on the beaches of Hawaii, summoning pitcher after pitcher without fear of retribution. It was a simple thing, stupid even in the grand scheme of things, But why should she have to hide any part of herself? She was a witch. Being born to Muggle parents did not change that, and she refused to hide anymore. Voldemort looked at her with trepidation. Look, at the end of the day, we could have lied, buried this, and hidden the fact that it responded to but we didn't, because we're trying to build trust here. Don't let paranoia get in the way of that. Ginny sighed and gave him a pointed expression. Ginny had decided to approach her relationship with Voldemort as one of old trustees, and to an extent, it seemed to have put Voldemort at ease. Ginny had always been viewed as a hothead, act first, think later type, but Ginny could be strategic in the way she managed people. Hermione had often questioned over the last few years if Ginny should have been in Slytherin back in school. She just seemed to know how to read people and was able to slip into the role they needed. Voldemort looked upwards, contemplating things before nodding to himself. I suppose this is true. Very well. I will withhold judgment for the time being. Hermione rolled her eyes. She knew that trust was earned, not given. She knew that better than anyone. But it didn't stop the feeling of annoyance rearing its ugly head whenever someone questioned her motives. Brilliant. Now, should we move on to business? She drawled, twirling her wand through her fingers. I have been theorizing on what went wrong with your resurrection and Peter Pettigrew. I was wondering if I might have Draco retrieve his memories of the night. Voldemort laughed, a sound that without a nose sounded inverted. That would be fine if I hadn't killed the spineless rat years ago. Ah, well, that made things difficult then, didn't it? The truth was that she could have listed 100 people who could have done a better job of Voldemort's resurrection than Peter Pettigrew. He knew how to hide, how to survive, but it didn't mean the man was capable of skilled magic. The evidence of that in the form of the man in front of her. It was more good luck than good management that he had survived as long as he did. He should have run and fled the country after what happened in Godric's Hollow. But the idiot had stayed here in England. I can offer my own memory of the night instead, he offered reluctantly. Hermione understood. He was still learning to trust her, and to part with a piece of himself like that was him showing her a great deal of good faith. Hermione shook her head. I'm afraid it won't help. I was hoping to examine his thoughts around it, see if there was a distraction somewhere during his spell work. Voldemort frowned. Would it affect the outcome? Hermione nodded. Yes, I would say so. That magic required a great level of skill and concentration, and it would have been easy to mess it up. Voldemort stared at her with narrowing eyes and tightly closed lips. He looked embarrassed. What's up, Baldy? Hermione asked casually. Voldemort exhaled a long breath. What I'm about to say is not to leave this room. Swear it. Ginny bit her lip to hide her smirk. We swear, Hermione reassured him. Pettigrew was a weak, spineless little thing. He was an animagus with the animal form of a rat. As you know, my wife Nagini... Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, what? Voldemort smiled sadly. Nagini was a maledictus. I met her not long before her snake form took hold of her completely. She appreciated my ability to communicate with her no matter what form she was in. It was one of the things that led to the bond we had. She terrified Pettigrew. She was there in the graveyard that night. It has been years since she had seen my human form and was anxious to show her support. Definitely a possibility that it may have been enough of a distraction to lead to these results, Hermione offered delicately. She could feel Ginny beside her, fighting extra hard not to snicker at the man in front of them, who bore a striking resemblance to a snake. Voldemort also seemed to be aware of it because he glared at the witch for a long time before eventually he also started to chuckle. Yes, I suppose that is rather humorous. He turned to Hermione with a serious look once more. Will you be able to fix it? Hermione chuckled. Shouldn't be a problem. Well, actually, it could be. She wasn't sure what was even the cause of the defection. It seemed likely, but the other issue was that she had a strand of thought that had been tugging in the back of her mind that told her she would require Harry Potter in the same manner that Peter had. Excellent. I will be having Draco reach out to the Muggle Prime Minister in coming days. Are you familiar with him? Tony, I believe is his name. Voldemort looked to Draco, who had remained silent against the back wall. Hermione assumed he had received a nod of confirmation, but did not bother to look for herself. It was all good and well to begin to make progress with the Muggle Prime Minister, but it would do little good if there was not a constant and consistent figurehead on their side to lead the operation. It was one thing to theorize about all the changes that would be made, and another entirely to implement them. Hermione was not ignorant of the scale of the project they were to undertake. I think what we should discuss is you stepping into the official role of Minister of Magic. If we want other countries to take us seriously, then we need to show we can run one country, let alone all of them. What we need is a minister that can be charming and charismatic, but cool and calm under pressure. We need to rebuild England, both Muggle and magical, because without that, this will all be for nothing. The people need to see someone that they can look to, which means, Baldy, you need to keep your nose clean. Beside her, Ginny slapped her hand over her mouth and swallowed the squeal of laughter that wanted to escape her. Hermione gave her a look that she hoped portrayed the need for the redhead to shut up before she pushed it too far, and they ended up truly fucked. Thankfully, be it the rings or the fact that the redhead seemed to be growing on the Dark Lord, the wizard rolled his eyes. You have our team to handle the dirty work for a reason. From now on, do not kill anyone. We want to focus on flipping the image the public has of you, which means community work, rebuilding destroyed but essential buildings like Hogwarts. Fund a project at St. Mungo's. Don't threaten to kill everyone if they don't comply, that type of shit. And obviously, we still need to come up with a game plan, but we are thinking France makes the most sense as the country following England, Ginny added, seemingly finally having regained her composure. Pending your approval, obviously. Voldemort nodded and waved his hand dismissively. Yes, that's fine. It's not just your public image that needs to be cleaned up. You have a few problem Death Eaters that will need to either be brought into line or disposed of. Hermione reverted back to her previous line of conversation. At that, Voldemort turned around and gave her a look of disapproval. My followers? Hermione sighed and rubbed her face. Yes, Baldy, the Death Eaters. I think a lot of them can be converted to the new plans, but some of them... Voldemort's shoulders stiffened, and Draco moved further into the room. It was seldom that he spoke first in Voldemort's presence, choosing more often than not to speak when spoken to. I happen to agree, my lord. I know you won't like this, but Tiberius is one of my oldest and most loyal supporters, Voldemort snapped, instantly going on the defensive. He's bad business, Voldster, Ginny said firmly. He's really bad business. He was loyal to your old regime, but there's no way he gets on board with this. You need to think seriously about what it is you want, because if it's the likes of him, then Maya and I are wasting our time here. Ginny, as always, was right. Not that Voldemort seemed too impressed with their observations. Hermione could see the paranoia whispering in his ear, telling him this was some kind of trick, that she was trying to reduce his numbers so he would be easier to attack. May I suggest a test of your own creation? Those who pass and swear loyalty to you, no matter where they are headed, can continue breathing. Those who do not can be put down like the dogs they are. Voldemort contemplated that for a moment. Very well. I suppose that's a reasonable plan.